Yes. I just don't want you to say something like this about my son.
Ő az én fiam is, te is tudod.
I mean, it's crazy to leave him like this.
That's what he told us. Don't react. Just let him get bored of his own jokes.
But not, please.
Hi, friends. It's Heidi M. And I'm joined virtually today by award-winning cinematographer Maya Bankovic. Nice to join you here in the virtual room.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Great to be here.
So, Maya, you are in film circuits. You're well known in terms of your cinematographic work. You started in documentary, I understand. You do some commercial work as well as feature narratives. But before we get into the special project we're going to talk about today, which is Blue Heron, I kind of wanted to get to know you a little bit in terms of where you are in your career. I understand you were making home videos since you were young. And sort of what was that trajectory for you and your connection to filmmaking?
I mean, I think the more I think about it now that it's been like, over 20 years of doing this, it's the thing that I just would sort of lose myself in the most as a kid and as a young person. It's the thing that the time would fly the most doing
Mm,
this video thing.
yeah.
Whether it was just for fun with like my sister, for with friends, hitting record on any kind of media, like tape media was very exciting. And then I think I realized that like there's a way to keep doing that if you kind of get actually good at it and make things, interesting, conceptual, beautiful, and how to learn how to do that. Go to film school and study the old masters, study the people that started it, and then the contemporary people come, eventually out of that. But yeah, just like a way to just keep having that feeling of just creation. And to me, the camera is like the perfect tool for art. It's like it's capturing the world as it is, but it's also finding a way to express yourself with the choices that you make, within those parameters. So it's just to me the perfect art form.
For sure. So I guess the moving image was something that you always connected to.
Yeah, and in a way that was like a little bit different than like a typical cinephile,
Mhm.
actually. Like I loved going to the movies just like any kid or teenager of my generation, and I watched way too much TV. And I was just like very interested in culture and media. I just wanted media and media making to be a part of my life. So to get through the that's those stages of like, okay, maybe I want to work in TV or make music videos or something. This was like the late 90s. So, but and then to actually, have a high school teacher say, well, what about films? Like that, she kind of exalted it to that level for me next, to like think bigger picture with it.
Mhm.
Um, because sometimes we need someone, to tell us to aim a little higher than just, I
Absolutely.
don't know, running around with a camera and seeing who will, who will bite with whatever we're putting out. So yeah, to really pursue film was like had to be like a ambitious and active choice.
Sure. Yeah. And I think it's always, I'm glad you mentioned having somebody say to you, oh, what about this?
Yeah.
To expand our world a little bit, especially when we're younger. Um,
Totally.
you mentioned being in film school and watching some of the classics. And in my research, I came across a note you put around a film that I really love, which is Soy Cuba from 1964.
Yeah. Yes.
And I really love what you said about the film. So maybe for folks who haven't found this in your socials yet, I kind of want to learn a little bit about you in terms of what was that film? What was it about that film that moved you so much that has stayed with you? And
Mhm.
any other cinematographers that you kind of gravitate to?
Yeah, Soy Cuba was like amazing to see as a young person. Just like knowing that I think I'm still like very drawn to things that were made prior to like, the technical advancements we've seen in our industry. So it's just about human ingenuity at that point. It's like pulling off these like highly conceptual shots with just sheer like teamwork, physics,
Yeah.
pulley systems and all that. But
Mhm.
like what's so striking about that film is the way that it shows it uses these elements not for to dazzle people but to really say something, and that to me was always the very exciting part about filmmaking was like, what's the concept behind the image always, you know? Like if I hadn't gotten into film school, I would have done like semiotics or something and anthropology and these things because I was just very interested in like symbolism and the symbols of our culture and our society and like how important those things are in kind of shaping our worldviews and whatnot. So yeah, to see something that was like a political film but
Sure.
kind of treated playfully and then finding the ingenuity and the teamwork and the physics involved to create this epic scale in order to show contrast, you know, between social classes or how are we going to get a camera up to the roof to show what's going on up there and then have it dive into a swimming pool and show, you know, how these sort of elites are living or, you know, all these things that the film does
Mhm.
that are so poetic, actually. Yeah,
Right.
was striking. Hmm.
Yes, for sure. And do you, because I also do enjoy seeing these older films myself. For you as a cinematographer or DP, what are some of the other sort of films that you are kind of like always in your reference or toolkit, if you will?
Um, Early Martin Scorsese films
Hmm.
for me, like Taxi Driver, I'd love to talk about whenever I can.
Right.
And Mean Streets too. And I love the way he used Steadicam and music and stuff like that. And it's more just about designing. It's like about
Yes.
designing shots, you know, rather
Mhm.
than like, again, rather than the wow factor, it's like this sense of immersion, I think, that he does so well in those early films. Um, What else? Ooh. I mean, my very actually favorite movie from when I was a kid, which looking back was really beautiful, and I think I was drawn to its beauty, was The Secret Garden, the one from 1993.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's like Agnieszka Holland
Hmm.
is the director, I believe, and Roger Deakins shot it, which is cool because of course he becomes every film student's favorite iconic, yeah,
Yes.
inspiration as a DP. So, um, and I just felt as a kid it took children really seriously. It has a really serious mood. Like
Hmm.
it's not bright, it's moody, it's dark actually. The color palette is very earthy. So it just felt like a really serious movie. I felt like it really tapped into like, you know, the soul of a kid
Hmm.
that can handle that actually. And it wasn't sugarcoating anything aesthetically. So that was like a big one as a kid. Yeah, but once I was a film student, I would say like the Scorsese films. I mean, Eternal Sunshine was out at that time in the early 2000s, so everyone kind of wanted to do in-camera tricks, and I was like in the experimental stream. So that was like a contemporary film that was big. And then Kubrick films, of course.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, that's just, you know, that's like a standard, like The Shining.
Yes, not surprising, but
Yeah,
definitely they stay with you for years and years, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
take them apart in many different ways, I'm sure.
exactly.
But thank you for sharing about the Secret Garden because I kind of forgot about that film, and it's a really good one to go back to. And it's a nice segue into kind of Blue Heron because you mentioned children, and
Mm.
this, with Sophie's film, there's the point of view of children too in this film. So I'm kind of thinking about your documentary background and then these very personal sort of story where you kind of have to make decisions. I know that Sophie had her plans for the film, and you probably also brought in some of your own experience in terms of collaborating and creating the story. So, what were your sort of your instincts in composing and that
Mhm.
dialogue you had?
Well, we were lucky we were able to spend quite a lot of time in the house for the
Mhm.
childhood component, and which was our hope that we would find a house location and be able to spend a lot of time there so that we could map out our scenes because we knew we didn't want a lot of coverage. So, and coming from a documentary background, to me, that sort of my head goes to like, okay, what's like the best camera placement where we can capture most of this action in as few shots as possible? Because that was sort of our MO was like, our hope was to do sort of a Robert Altman in Shortcuts or like a Cassavetes thing where
Yes.
the camera will track the action as far as it can take it. And then if we need additional pieces for either emotional impact or to see, like literally for visual information, then we would, add those pieces as we go.
Mhm.
So it's in that sense, I find like I can find camera placement very quickly. And I think that is the documentary background is like
Hmm.
I kind of know what's going to give us like a nice angle for lighting and also to see the information of like, the emotional performances, like the to read what the actors are actually experiencing, but also contextualizing them in the space at the same time. So it's sort of both. Like I think an image needs to do at least two things at once, ideally, like it's not just it's like a shot can be about performance, but it's also giving you layers of information and what's included in their environment around them and that type of thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, we knew we were going to use a zoom lens and have that zoom be active, and that would be the most movement we would see in the film. So the camera's not traveling through space, but it's panning and it's tracking with panning and tilting and zooming and feeling dynamic that way. So it was just like, this is the camera placement for this scene. And let's see how far we can take that one shot and we can do a pop on this person's reaction or that type of thing and know that we had the scene, like the rest is all the actors, like just trusting the actors.
Right. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think it does come across quite nicely in the film. And I also noticed something around the way the images come across. I know they're very deliberate in some regards, but also they come really softly in terms of
Mhm.
how we see them as viewers. And I know it's set in the 1990s, so there's a bit of a period piece going here. And I kind of wanted to ask you about what your thoughts were coming into this film about memory and what that would feel or look like through
Oh.
your lenses.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think having some of like a human face partially obscured sometimes by having an imperfect angle on an actor by movie standards, I mean, like we're so used to being sort of spoon-fed a close-up,
Yeah.
and that is sort of meant to, again, like back to the semiotics, like this
Mhm.
means this, right? But when you can only see a piece of a person, or we're choosing to just show them in a mirror because
Mhm.
that's where this particular vantage point can grab that from, it evokes that feeling of happenstance a bit, like and that's sort of how our memories sort of tend to work. Like we're never in the most perfect spot to see our mother's reaction to something, but we might catch her in profile. Um,
Mhm.
Treating the camera really as like a human in the room. Like let's only put the camera where a human could possibly witness this from, even if it's not exactly the seat that our young Sasha is sitting in, but it is a plausible position to have witnessed this moment from.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot because especially around the house in the childhood scenes, it really brought me back to some of the things I would do as a kid.
Mm.
When people were having discussions in the house and you're too young for this kind of feeling, and
Yeah.
it really does bring us back into that, but also this reliability of memory or not so reliable in what we remember.
And sometimes we just remember like the texture or the chopping sounds, and
Mhm.
there's tension in the chopping, or these types of things that are more sort of subliminal, actually. And so
Yeah.
I think so. We knew we would be merging the image with really rich sound design and yeah, those
Mhm.
editing choices as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And you also talked, you were just mentioning around phases and things like that. And this is also something in this film because it is so intimate. We do get to know folks through their faces and their expressions, but it's never, like you said, not like invasive.
Mhm.
So, from your point of view as cinematographer, when or how do you know when to hold the shot, for example, or
Yeah.
kind of having a little bit of patience.
I think that's the other thing I probably learned that from documentary, like is just that the person will often say the real thing after you think they're done talking. So
Mm-hmm.
always just keep it rolling. In this case, we had the luxury of actors and a script and
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of rehearsal too.
Yeah.
So, but I think the fusion of those formats comes in holding a shot that, how can I put it? Um, Almost as if it's to anticipate that
Ah.
possibility of more
Mm-hmm.
that does happen in real life.
Right.
instead of, and I think that's also where our editor Kurt Walker and Sophie did such a nice job is sometimes they're just out of the moment because there's not much more to say.
Mhm.
But then often when they hold on something, it's that tension of like, is there another beat here?
Ah, yes.
And so, yeah,
That,
they
yes.
designed that really nicely. But for us, we had the luxury of knowing that there was more. But I
Yes.
think in giving people that is there or isn't there a moment that you do get in documentaries if you do
Mhm.
hold the shot long enough, it's much more satisfying, as a viewer.
Mhm. I think so. Was there any opportunity to sort of improvise a little bit, even if there were some things that were scripted and kind of timed?
Yeah, especially with the young performers, like the
Hmm.
act, the kids we were often just they were just often instructed to just play. So, and we never wanted a frenetic camera. So we know the playing, for example, outside with water balloons, that's just ongoing. So the camera can still drift and still have that same cadence to it,
Right.
knowing that whatever it lands on is relevant, in a sense. So it's just about kind of finding beauty in those kind of fragmented moments of joy that are just happening. Because I think Sophie did a great job of just creating real situations for the kids to just live in
So
and be.
true.
Yeah.
So, so true. Um, I do want to maybe keep on these idea of young folks in the film and thinking about things that also happen, not necessarily in the center of the screen, but especially with Jeremy, there are things that are happening sometimes on the side and,
Mhm.
not always in view. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about that, also planning for those sort of moments and building that language of who's Jeremy without him being so vocal, because there's almost no dialogue.
Yeah, yeah. He carries so much that performer Edic Bedos, carries so much tension like, as Jeremy in his body that you could just hold on a seemingly stationary shot, but there's things happening in his neck or in his shoulders. And I think, what I love actually about this type of cinematography and shooting in terms of process is just just letting someone be in front of the lens, like just letting them be and letting them take their time and
Yeah,
that patience that's required. Because he was giving quite a physical performance throughout, right? Even though he didn't have a lot of dialogue, there's a lot going on in his eyes and in his, yeah, just in those minute sort of gestures. Um, and then for us, anytime action was obscured, it felt so much richer than just explicitly showing what was happening, below the window or, or if something was obscured by the sequence when he's on the roof.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
we actually shot a lot more material of him on the roof and
Oh.
then they decided later how much is enough, like we don't want to
Mhm.
oversell this roof thing. It just seems sort of gratuitous or I don't know what, but it's not like a sort of what do they call it? Like a production value moment or something.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if we just catch a glimpse of him, it's almost more terrifying than
Yes.
doing a big wide shot of the situation.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think it goes back to that point of you saying earlier, we don't always need to know everything, every little detail spelled
mhm.
out. And I think it ties in well with the whole idea of memory because it's
Yeah.
also, again, through Sasha's point of view, a lot of these events, right?
Yeah, and a lot has to be inferred when your vision is actually obstructed and the information is scarce.
Hmm.
So there's like it triggers a curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I learned as well that you also had access to Sophie's dad's like the home videos that her dad also took when they were young. And were there any, and I'm sure that some of this informed your work, but were there any specific parts of those videos that sort of you knew for sure were influential to the story in some way?
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you asked about those home videos. Like going back to the patience part, like just he would hold very long, uninterrupted takes, just slowly zooming in on the actions of his kids, just making crafts or just hanging out,
Yeah.
like really mundane, quotidian stuff. that was just going on around the house that most parents would never think to document. But I'm so grateful that he did. Like, I think it's a really cool thing to have that
Yes.
document of your own kids anyway, like just to have
Mhm.
just to because those are the really the fleeting things most people I would imagine forget, like
Mhm.
I have young kids and I don't they grow so quickly and right before your eyes that you forget what 2 years ago looked like, or it all just starts to blend. So I think it's a really smart thing actually to make just videos that aren't just special occasions, but they're just kind of hanging around. It
Mhm.
became this like treasure trove for us because he would just like he had this gaze behind the camera that was so loving and attentive. He was truly fascinated by the kids, and
Right.
we wanted to bring that same level of care and fascination to the camera here.
Yeah, and I think it's captured really well in those scenes when we see the family and the father in the film using the camera, and it feels like it's almost, I wonder if that's also part of it in terms of this is what those home videos look like from
Hmm.
Sophie's childhood, you know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You'd be amazed, like just even the resemblance with some of the siblings, the production design, the clothing, it's just stunning. It don't, when we first started the project, I was always, it just struck me that we were kind of doing like performance art or something, or like I was just like, what is this actually? Like, this is
Sure.
really a reenactment in
Hmm.
a way, and it was so brave and just spectacular, really, the amount of detail that went into this. And it's not like it's begging for the comparison to the original material and the source family, but if someone were to see it, they would be quite amazed. Yeah.
Mm, that makes sense because even in my first viewing of the film, I was like, oh, okay. And then for a minute, I'm like, am I watching a documentary? Am I watching like an actual family,
Mhm.
like an actual intimate family portrait? And I felt like I was almost intruding a little bit. So I
Yeah.
think but it's okay. Like it kind of allowed me there were elements where I felt it's okay for me to witness this, you know?
Yeah, and that's actually a really nice point, to
Mhm.
give people permission to glimpse into these moments that are often very much behind closed doors. Like the reason we were shooting through windows so often is there was that sort of element of paranoia and social anxiety around the goings on inside the house. But this is an opportunity to see what does happen,
Mhm.
in the parts of life most people would prefer to keep private.
That is so true. And I will say that some of my favorite scenes are through windows as well, even through Sasha's, or like herself looking through windows and also
Yeah,
trying to make sense of her world too,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I know I'm mindful of time, but I'm also, I know that you work with some really, really great filmmakers in your career. And I want to shout out somebody that we miss a lot in the film industry, Charles Officer. And I know that he's also worked with young people. And, each filmmaker have their own sort of director's voice in a way. And I kind of wanted to know what was it with Sophie that, aligned with you in the way that you like telling stories.
Um, Much like Charles, they both work from a high conceptual place first, but then when it comes time to actually capture it and shoot, there's such an organic feeling behind it. It's okay, what else does the scene need? Or
Mm,
feeling confident that we got it. That's all it needs to be. That we got the moment. We got that perfect look from one person to the other, and that's it. That's also the beauty of working with like these auteur filmmakers where they don't have to offer options and other things that we see in other sectors of the industry where maybe it's found in the edit, maybe it's even found by a third party later. That's not the case with such filmmakers where it's about their gut feeling.
right.
So, yeah, very intuitive filmmaking, but I think that also comes from knowing their own world very, very well. There's
Mm,
no second guessing. So it's like Sophie can answer any question very quickly and easily because she knew the world very well, not just because it was based, on her era and her upbringing and family, because there's a ton of creative choices there that are not about that type of accuracy. They have to be filtered through like an artistic lens. So
sure.
she has like just a great instinct for something that fits or doesn't fit. We
Hmm.
tried one sequence in the dark room, handheld. No, like we didn't shoot it. We just kind of offered it as a
Hmm.
rehearsal. And it's just not, it's not this movie, you know? So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, the yes or no comes very quickly, you know? Yeah. So I've been very lucky to work with very decisive filmmakers who are, yeah, I would say they're like intimately familiar with the worlds they're trying to depict. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and like you said, I think there's a certain level of trust too that also comes across in the storytelling that I found with this film in even repeat viewings too. It's very special.
Yeah, because it's when there's that level of confidence, you can trust your collaborators, you can trust that they are offering when they are offering a suggestion, it's in the spirit of the project. No one there had an agenda outside of just making this piece feel extremely holistically cohesive and
Hmm.
exactly what it should be, you know. And so no one element I think stands out. It's just like this collection of pieces, and that to me is like perfect filmmaking, to be honest, you know.
Yeah.
It's everything just meshes perfectly that you do feel like you're watching something that could be a documentary, as you said. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really special project, and I mean, I could go on and ask you more questions, but we're not going to get too technical. I kind of wanted to ask you what it's like to move from something like this into maybe your next project, and I don't know if you can share anything that you're working on right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the one thing I haven't really touched is like thrillers and
Mm.
things like that. So I've actually been approached about two thrillers that I'm
Oh, wow.
working on. One sort of, yeah, not full blown production yet, but just some like test shooting right now. And it's nice, you know, because to me, and I've also done sci-fi. It's
Yes.
like it's
Hmm.
and people ask how do you go between things, but it's always about the actors actually, to be honest, the performers. So it's like we need to, from my perspective, cinematographers help build and photograph this world as if it's a very real situation for the people in the frame. And
Hmm.
that's just kind of what it comes down to, you know, is like that's like the one common thread is like to find the humanity and like to really sell it. Like, are we believing this moment yet or not? Does this really feel so if there's like a level of groundedness to it, even if it's a genre piece, then that to me is a success. You know, we want people to feel immersed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so yes, I mean, I didn't give a whole bio at the start of this because it's public information, but I will say that you've done some amazing, a full kind of breadth of work in your career. So it's so nice to see this.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Thank you so much for your time, Maya.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.